Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Price Check here on the In the Zone Network, where we go city to city, state to state, worldwide. Of course, we're starting today's show with a brief NBA trade deadline recap before diving into Super Bowl preview here this Sunday. Of course, starting in the world of the NBA trade deadline, a little bit disappointing. Got to be honest about that. It was a little bit of a dud. We didn't get all of the big moves and star power that we thought we might get. And even then, we were looking at the DeJounte Murrays and whether or not the Lakers might make a move, those types of things. They didn't pan out. You had a lot of NBA owners look at themselves and say, you know what, we're not gonna take out second mortgage or break the bank for some renovations. We're just gonna do a small remodel. We're gonna add a new couch here and there. We're gonna throw in some new tiles over here. Nothing major, right? So not a whole lot to break down from the trade deadline. Really more interested in the teams and players that didn't move versus the ones that did. Now, one semi big move that did happen though, the New York Knicks kind of going for it right now, going and getting Bojan Bogdanovic from the Detroit Pistons, along with Alec Burks. Sent out some young players, Quentin Grimes, as well as Ryan Arcidiacono, Malachi Flynn, some guys that weren't really playing much, second round picks. They didn't really have to give up a first round pick of any consequence. So a pretty no brainer move for the New York Knicks, and a team that has been playing outstanding here, as we've gotten closer to the All-Star break. Jalen Brunson has been out of his mind, even with Julius Randle out of the lineup. We saw, a few weeks back that they went and made the move for OG Anunoby. And so that move has not only, played out well for them, they went out and went all in with this Bogdanovich move, which gives them a little bit of added scoring, especially after them sending out Emmanuel quickly to get OG Anunoby. So, you look at this Knicks team, and I say they're going for it because if you look at the landscape out in the rest of the Eastern Conference, you got the Celtics that are kind of clearly the top team, but even for them, they're Porzingis injury away from kind of stepping back to the rest of the pack there. You've also got Philly, who is going to be without Joel Embiid for at least 4 weeks, probably as long as the rest of the regular season. So Milwaukee has been a little bit of a mess. They went out, changed coaches, and I believe, have not won a game since changing coaches with Doc Rivers. Maybe one win sprinkled in there. They won last night also against the Hornets, but it's a team that has not really gelled yet. You got the Cavaliers in the East also, who have played well, but they also lost to the Knicks in the playoffs last year. So this Knicks team has it set up to where if they can get that 2 seed in the East, watch out. It's definitely going to be an opportunity for them to make some noise come playoff time. So love that move for the Knicks. Again, didn't have to give up much. The Pistons are clearly just, tanking yet again, going for bottom feeder status here in the NBA. So they've had some young guys play well. They actually decided to cut a few guys as well at the trade deadline, Joe Harris being one of them. 2020 first round pick Killian Hayes also being one of them. So a lot of moving parts there for the Pistons, but yet another disappointing season from them. I also don't know how long Monty Williams is going to be able to keep that job, just given how things have started. They had that long losing streak. They are still in single digit wins right now, so not looking good in Detroit from a basketball standpoint. The other kind of semi big move that we had at the trade deadline was Gordon Hayward going from Charlotte to Oklahoma City. Veteran role player at this stage of his career, and a guy that can give this young Oklahoma City team some veteran leadership. Similar situation for the Bogdanovich trade that we mentioned for New York. Not a lot that they had to give up in order to acquire Gordon Hayward. Trey Mann, Davis Bertans expiring contract, some second round picks. Again, not a whole lot that you have to give up to make that move. So kind of a no-brainer to go ahead and get it done. Gives them another wing to play with and be versatile. You obviously have to hope that Gordon Hayward stays healthy in most of this, but so far this season he's been able to do that. And it's played well in Spurs, of course, just stuck on that Charlotte team, a team that also not going anywhere, deciding to cash in some of those chips that they have as far as trade assets to get some young players and some draft assets in return. So kind of like that for both sides, to be honest, because at this point, if you're Charlotte, just tear it all down, continue building around Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball, and that's if you decide to keep LaMelo. And then, of course, from Oklahoma City standpoint, they're a young team. They're going to be, a top 3 seed in the Western Conference. This Gordon Hayward addition, while it's not going to, probably be the difference between them winning the championship and not getting to the finals, it's still an opportunity for them to have somebody who's been through some of those big games in that locker room. So, like that deal for them. 76ers also made a minor move. They're getting Buddy Hield from the Indiana Pacers. Again, giving up Furkan Korkmaz, Marcus Morris, guys that weren't really playing for them. And, Hield, an expiring contract as well, gives them some added versatility here for not only this into the regular season while Joel Embiid is recovering from his meniscus injury, does give them a guy that they could potentially decide to keep in house next year once Joel comes back. But again, if they decide not to bring him back, they still get to keep all that cap room that they'll have this summer without giving up any draft assets in the meantime. So, like that move for Philly as well. Honestly, the homer in me wishes a guy like Buddy Hield could have made his way to the Lakers, but we'll save that one for another time. So, some other kind of minor moves around the fringes for some teams. Dallas made a couple moves. They gave up a pretty important first round pick in order to get PJ Washington from Charlotte. And then they swapped Rashawn Holmes, a guy who was not playing much for them on an expiring contract, for Daniel Gafford from the Wizards. So getting some front court upgrades around Luka Doncic with the season that he's having. Not sure that PJ and Daniel Gafford are going to be the ones to kind of push them over the edge, but you do have to at least do something while you have Luka playing the way that he has. And then, of course, funny when that happened, Patrick Beverly got to break his own trade on his podcast, going from the 76ers to the Milwaukee Bucks. Also, keeping with the trend that James Harden started here this past offseason, calling Daryl Morey a liar. So apparently Daryl Morey told Patrick Beverly that he was not going to be traded, and sure enough, traded him to an Eastern Conference rival. So traded him for a campaign. We'll see how that plays out for both teams. Definitely some defense that is needed there by the Milwaukee Bucks, but I'm also not sure that that's going to be the move that solidifies their championship hopes. It's really going to be, Giannis and Dame and how far those guys can put or keep that team on their back as they go. So some kind of interesting news too. Spencer Dinwiddie got traded from the Brooklyn Nets to the Toronto Raptors and then ultimately got bought out. He's been one of the hotter names on the buyout market here as far as the NBA is concerned. Looking like he's going to either join the Mavericks or the Lakers. This week he's been at games, or I guess since the trade deadline, has been at games for both teams. So we'll see how that plays out. And then, as we mentioned, Lakers really didn't do anything at the trade deadline. You didn't see guys like DeJounte Murray move. Of course, with the Lakers not doing anything, you didn't see a guy like D'Angelo Russell move. The Raptors deciding to keep Bruce Brown, probably will exercise his team option going into the offseason and maybe look to trade him at the time of the draft this offseason. So to the point on the Lakers, there's a lot of people, mainly LeBron fans, asking, hey, why didn't they try to do more? Why didn't they make a move? What's going on? I actually agree with them standing pat. It's not at least a roster right now that is just, you can say it's one move away from being, one move is going to make the difference between them being in the play-in right now and them being, potentially a 1 seed in the West. This is a team that has had a healthy LeBron for pretty much the whole season. They've had a healthy Anthony Davis for pretty much the whole season, and they're in the play-in. There's no way around that. You can say the other guys on the roster have not done their jobs. You can say that Darvin Ham has not been the greatest coach. Get all of that. But with all of that said, you still have LeBron James. You still have Anthony Davis healthy. Team should be better. And so if you look at that, you probably say, hey, let's maybe wait and not do a drastic win now move that's probably not going to help us win anything this season, and just save our trade chips for the summer when we can go out and use 3 first round picks and kind of use some of the other contracts that we've collected, and really go get a guy that's going to push us over the top. Now, you've seen names floated out there like Donovan Mitchell, Trae Young. I don't know if those are going to be the guys that they ultimately get. But I think those are much better options than DeJounte Murray or an injured Zach LaVine that we saw at this trade deadline. So definitely agree with the Lakers standing pat and kind of holding their trade chips for a later time. What that means for LeBron and his Lakers future, I don't know. But At the same time, the Lakers also have Anthony Davis under contract. They have Austin Reeves under contract. They'll be able to make some moves, regardless of what decision LeBron makes. And let's be honest, LeBron's 39. Will be 40 next year. He's not. He's not going to be jumping from team to team trying to win championships again the way that he was in his prime. And some of that is a little bit unfair to LeBron, but at the end of the day, he's not going to be chasing rings in that way to where he's, at least to me, he could probably prove me wrong. We've seen different from LeBron in the past, but I think that if you're him at this stage of his career, I think he probably ends his career in Los Angeles. He's just trying to use as much leverage as he can, but leverage that he really doesn't have right now because we've seen him push for moves like Russell Westbrook being traded to the Lakers, and that has not turned out well. So definitely agree with the Lakers, just holding and seeing how this team finishes this season as is. So that's really kind of all of the moves that we had. We thought, the Warriors might make a move. They, stood pat at the trade deadline. They're just going to let their guys rock out for the rest of the season. So we'll see how some of that ultimately affects, this championship push for some of these teams, playoff push for some of these teams down the stretch. Now, switching gears, got to go into the world of the NFL as it is Super Bowl weekend. We got a great game on tap here tomorrow. Chiefs versus 49ers. A game that, of course, we saw 4 years ago. Let's knock on wood, do whatever superstitious acts that we need to make sure that this does not lead to another pandemic, as that Super Bowl did down in Miami. But you have a San Francisco and honestly a Kansas City team that are really different than they were the last time that they met in the Super Bowl. So you got this Chiefs team that does not have Tyreek Hill anymore. Their offense is not really the most explosive or as explosive as it was the last time these two teams met. But that defense is in all ways legitimate, no matter what numbers or advanced stats you try to look at. That defense has been legit this year and been really top three, top five all season long here in the NFL. And then you got the San Francisco team where they had Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback the last time these two teams played. Raheem Mostert was the running back. They now have Christian McCaffrey. It's a much different team on offense for them. And then defensively, they're not quite as dominant as they may have been leading up to that Super Bowl in 2020. So when you look at all things considered, you obviously on paper are going to say that San Francisco is probably the more talented team across the board. But we are at that stage now with Patrick Mahomes, man, where I said it before the AFC Championship game. While we're hoping that the Ravens had won that game, we've seen time and time again now where these teams that are better stack up against the Kansas City Chiefs on paper, what have you, but when they actually get into the game, they just aren't able to make it happen. And it's definitely getting into that Tom Brady like territory for Patrick Mahomes, where you just cannot pick or bet against him at this point. Where we've seen him pull out games. Even last year's Super Bowl, the man threw for 187 yards, 3 touchdowns. They still won the game, and that was a Philly defense that we thought was legitimately good and had proved themselves to be that all the way up until that Super Bowl last year. We've seen him against the Bills this year where they were underdogs on the road. We've seen it go into, Baltimore on the road as an underdog and just have, play after play after play where it's not, they're not, again, putting up 35, 40 points on teams, but at the same time, they are making all of the right plays when it counts the most. And I can't bet against that at this stage. So right now, I think if I had to make a prediction, I'll take the Chiefs. I'll, probably is something like 24-21, something along that line. It's not going to be as many points, I think, as many people out there are probably going to predict. I think the over-under for this game right now is up to 47.5. I honestly would take that under because you're looking at a Kansas City Chiefs team that, especially in the second half of these games throughout the playoffs and even towards the end of the regular season, they're limiting teams to 3 and 6 points. It's not a whole lot of points being scored on them, and they're able to create turnovers when they need it most. And then also going up against a quarterback like Brock Purdy, a guy that we saw especially even against Detroit, he's going to throw you some passes that can be intercepted. Now, whether or not you actually intercept those passes is a different story. But I do think this is a vulnerable quarterback in the sense that you can get pressure on him. You can get some of those passes to be deflected. You can get some plays made on defense. And if you do that, you could, allow, Isaiah Pacheco to run the ball the way that he has this postseason. And, the 49ers being a team that is a little bit vulnerable to the run, the Chiefs being able to control the ball, limit the possessions for San Francisco's offense. Because, again, if we're being honest, San Francisco probably has more explosive players and the ability to make more explosive plays right now. But, I don't know that I trust, Brock Purdy going up against that Chiefs defense the way that we've seen them play time and time again here towards the end of the season. So predicting that a Chiefs win is going to happen. I don't think that this is going to be just this, shootout of a game. I do think that it's going to be fairly low scoring for what we're expecting. Like I said, over under at 47.5. I would definitely take that under. I might sound blasphemous even though I'm picking the Chiefs, but I would honestly take Patrick Mahomes under on his passing yards, 262.5 right now. I believe he's been under that 262.5 last 5 games, including the playoffs. This Brock Purdy, I think the over-under on his touchdowns is 1.5. We'll probably take that under. Chiefs are not allowing anybody to throw for 2 touchdowns. And also, if you're San Francisco, probably going to put the ball in Christian McCaffrey's hands more times than not. Love all of his player props for this Super Bowl. Also, keep in mind, 6 out of the last 7 Super Bowls, we have had at least one player score 2 touchdowns. So if you're, of course, folks putting the parlays together for the big game, you are, looking at guys like Christian McCaffrey, Travis Kelce. I would, take a look at Deebo Samuel and George Kittle as well for those 2 touchdowns. Maybe even Isaiah Pacheco. He's a guy, again, who's been running hard. He's going to be the primary ball carrier for that offense. So I do think you'll get a chance to see at least one guy score 2 touchdowns again in this game. But ultimately what it comes down to is you really just can't bet against Patrick Mahomes. Just don't do it. It's not a good investment. The Chiefs time and time again are finding themselves in position to win these games. And I think, Super Bowl Sunday, they ultimately come out with the win. You probably are going to see Patrick Mahomes win yet another Super Bowl MVP and start to really cement his legacy already as at least the second greatest quarterback of all time. Start putting him in that conversation with Joe Montana, Tom Brady, and kind of that, top 3. And he's got really nowhere to go but up as he continues to stack these wins in the playoffs and potentially another Super Bowl. So Chiefs win. Again, I'll go 24-21. I do think San Francisco can get the 3 touchdowns as the game goes on, but again, I can't bet against Patrick Mahomes and Big Red Andy Reid. So Chiefs win. We're looking at another Kansas City Super Bowl win. Hopefully they aren't going too crazy over Taylor Swift if she is in attendance, but you know how it goes, man. We've seen it time and time again this playoffs and this regular season since that whole Swift and Kelce connection has been together. So that will do it for us here on the Price Check this week. To everybody that's been tuning in lately, liking, sharing, subscribing, please, thank you. Definitely want to make sure to send a shout out y'all way. Also, we are going to do another mailbag show, question and answer, as some people will probably refer to it here right around the NBA All-Star break here in another week or so. All-Star break is teams are probably going to stop playing or something like next Thursday. They'll have that big week off after the All-Star game. So somewhere in that time frame, we'll do question and answer here on the Price Check. Make sure you send your questions, whether it's DM to Price Check Podcast on Instagram, or if you send it to our email address down below, pricecheckntz@gmail.com. We're going to make sure to get your questions answered, whether it's football, basketball, even if it's something directly about me, whatever's on your heart, make sure you send it to us. We'll make sure to give you a shout out here on the show. So, till next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Josh Price. Price Check. Check it out.